welcome to my OCR A-level biology revision session with me, Christine. So today's lesson I want to look at plant response to abiotic stress. So right now, if you look out your window, if you live in the UK like I do, you're going to be seeing some of the leaves start to fall from the deciduous trees. Well, that's because of the hormone ethene. So the hormone ethene promotes abscission. That's leaf fall. Now, what causes that? Well, in autumn, the light levels are dropping. Now that's going to result in a decrease in auxin concentration in the plant. Now auxin is another hormone which I've done a whole video on, so do check that one out. But the key thing to know is that when the plant detects that the auxin concentration has decreased, it will respond by producing this new hormone, ethene. Now, ethene is a gaseous hormone. And what the ethene is going to do is the ethene is going to affect the cells in what's known as the abscission zone. So this is at the bottom of the leaf stalk. Now, these cells are really sensitive to ethene, this gaseous hormone. And what happens is when ethene is released, that is going to signal, it's a hormone that's produced and will cause a response in another part of the plant. That's going to cause genes to be switched on. Now, these gene switching that's going to occur is going to produce enzymes. Those enzymes are going to start to digest and weaken the cell wall within this abscission zone. Now, what that will result in is that strain from the change in temperature, from the increase in wind, will actually cause strain to result in this leaf separating. That's the leaf fall. What will be left is this waterproof scar. So what the plant has done is it has prepared the area so that when the leaf does fall, it has blocked off any entry to any pathogen. So this is one of the roles that ethene has in the plant. Now that is because the temperatures are decreasing, the light levels are decreasing. The plant doesn't want to waste producing the chlorophyll molecules, producing all the necessary proteins and structures to keep the plant leaves in position if they're not going to be able to photosynthesize as much because there's less light. So this links very nicely to the light-dependent reaction of photosynthesis. If there's not very much light, there's not going to be much light-dependent reaction, therefore there'll be less glucose molecules being produced. Well, the glucose that needs to be broken down in respiration to maintain the leaf will be a higher demand. So by dropping the leaves until a point where the light levels have increased again, that is more beneficial for the plant. And that is why deciduous trees actually produce this ethene hormone to promote that leaf fall. Now, another thing we need to think about is as the temperature changes, when we go into the summer months, obviously it gets a lot hotter, but as we go into the winter months, as the rainfall decreases and we start to get colder temperatures, what could happen is there could be a shortage of water. So let's just remind ourselves about how the plant responds. So when there is potassium ions being actively pumped into guard cells, what that's going to do is increase solute concentration and lower water potential. As a result, water will enter those guard cells by osmosis, and that's going to make them turgid and the stomata will open. The stomata open, that therefore allows for the diffusion of carbon dioxide into the leaf, and that will allow for photosynthesis to occur. Now, as a consequence of that, water will be lost by transpiration. So what the plant can do is the plant can close its stomata, and in this case, the potassium ions are actively transported out of the guard cells. We're going to decrease the solute concentration, raise that water potential, and as a consequence, water will leave the guard cells by osmosis, they will become flaccid, and the stomata will close. So this is a way in the plant being able to respond to temperature. Well, we also have a hormone called abscisic acid. Now, abscisic acid is going to stimulate stomatoclosing. So the leaf cells are going to release ABA in response to abiotic stresses. Now, if the temperature gets too high, the plant is going to lose too much water through that transpiration. Therefore, the water availability in the soil is going to decrease. That becomes a problem. So the ABA that's released is going to bind to receptors. This is going to activate these changes in the ionic concentration. That's going to change the water potential of the guard cells, therefore reducing the turgor of the cells and closing the stomata. So it's important that we note that ABA is a hormone that is released in response to this abiotic stress. That abiotic stress, that water availability, and the increase in temperature. Now, the leaf cells release the ABA, but what we now know is actually the roots also release ABA. So when there is a water shortage, when there is severe drought, and this is detected by those epidermal cells in the root, they will secrete ABA. And that ABA will then travel up the xylem and be able to then bind to receptors on those guard cells, closing those stomata, ensuring that the water is not lost by transpiration. So this is a hormone that is being released by the plant, being transported and affecting where its target cell is. And in this case, the target cells are the guard cells, which are going to close those stomata. Now, ABA also has another role when it comes to winter time. As the temperature decreases, what ABA does is it actually stimulates a cold protective response. It produces an antifreeze molecule. So what we have is solutes in cytoplasm and in the sap will actually lower the freezing point within the cell. Now, if the winter months get cold enough, what can happen is they can actually lower down to that freezing point. So what the plant will do in response to that decrease in temperature is it will produce molecules. It will produce ABA, which will stimulate the production of these molecules that can act as antifreeze and therefore preventing the plant cells from freezing so that they still are able to carry out their metabolic processes. So I hope you've liked this video, and if you have, then please do click on the like button and subscribe to my channel. And if you haven't done so already, please do check out www.aiqchat.com.